If you follow me on Twitter X, you probably know that I've just finished reading Mistborn. And apparently that's the best place to start for Brandon Sanderson's interconnected universe, the Cosmere. So I picked the right book to start with, I guess. I just finished it and it's awesome. Loved it. Such a unique magic system. It's really cool. Allomancy, very interesting, but I love how Brandon Sanderson writes it and introduces you to it. Very detailed, and I love the way Sanderson introduces the reader to it through the perspective of someone who's new to it. So it's a very organic way to learn about the magic system in a fun and entertaining way. Loved it. Highly recommend if you are new to the Mistborn universe. Obviously, it's a trilogy, so I just started the first book in that. But man, as just one book, though, on its own, it's great. And then introduction to this wider world. Adventuresome, very unique fantasy world filled with so many unique and interesting characters. And super excited if this ever gets to be adapted. I know it's been floating around there for quite a while. And you can see it. I can see it in my mind's eye as I was reading, this would make an amazing adaptation. And I think just what the realm of fantasy adaptation needs right now, something fresh and new. And you have the author ready and here and willing to aid in any adaptation. So Brandon Sanderson actually spoke about this recently, about a possible adaptation and what his requirements would be. So Brandon Sanderson was at Celsius 232, some sort of Comic-Con-like event. This is from his blog, brandonsanderson.com. And it starts out by saying that Brandon Sanderson didn't hesitate when asked about his ultimate dream project at his panel today during Celsius 232. Quote, "I want a movie. I want a really good Mistborn film," he announced to thunderous applause from the crowd. The best-selling fantasy author revealed that he still envisions his Mistborn saga as a feature film, despite many suggesting it would work better as a TV series. Sanderson feels a blockbuster movie event could have a greater cultural impact than a streaming series. In fact, he has argued that while it might be easier to get a TV show made, very few streaming series become true pop culture phenomena, whereas a film franchise can reach a broader audience. And he says, quote, "Everyone tells me to do it as a TV show," Sanderson said, "but I still feel like I can make it work as a feature film." He even lightheartedly agreed with a fan who shouted video game as another adaptation idea, grinning at the thought of a Mistborn video game. But a movie remains his top priority. I actually do agree about preferring a film adaptation. Obviously, a TV series could definitely allow for more time and depth to be taken in establishing the world and the characters. But fantasy on TV, especially on streaming, has been such a hostile environment. And I actually do agree with him about that it seems to have less of a cultural impact, especially on streaming. I mean, fantasy television has really struggled on streaming. They really haven't cracked it probably since Game of Thrones. But Game of Thrones, that was on HBO first, so that was very different than what the current environment is. And there's lots of competition and it's so expensive. They haven't cracked that, how to make it on a budget. But I do feel that a film could make it worth it. It could definitely give you the revenue that you need. It would definitely be profitable. I think I'm quite ready for a new big budget fantasy film franchise, something new and fresh, and it's such a great story and world. This would be perfect. So I'm ready, and I definitely can envision it as a film franchise. Multiple films, actually, I think you would need to adapt even that first book. So I don't know if he's thinking of it just one movie per book, but Mistborn itself, I think you would need at least 2 films. I think on film, it could connect to that broader audience and have a really lasting impact in the pop culture zeitgeist. I feel like we need something like that again to really nerd out about and enjoy. It's been so long. He is extremely successful fantasy writer, obviously. So of course he's been approached by studios, producers, and the article continues saying for years, the author has been cautious about movie deals that might compromise his stories. But now he finds himself in a position of greater power. And he said, quote, "The more popular I become, the more power I seem to have." He's using that clout to ensure any adaptation stays true to his vision, a worthy cause indeed. Sanderson has made it a firm condition that he be deeply involved in the screenwriting and narrative of a Mistborn film. My ask is that I need to be able to write the screenplay and control the narrative, he said. Sanderson isn't interested in a Hollywood deal unless he can protect the integrity of the story. He doesn't even insist on veto power over casting or minor details. His line in the sand is the story itself. If a studio wants Mistborn, they'll have to let Sanderson steer the screenplay. And that's just like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you let him do that? It seemed like that was a common thing before. Authors working on their own film adaptations of the novels that they worked on. Peter Benchley, Michael Crichton, and even more recently, Andy Weir on Project Hail Mary. He was integral. He was there on set all the time. He was there as a fount of knowledge, a resource for the writers and directors and actors, and he would have conversations with all of them. He was deeply involved in the Project Hail Mary film adaptation, and I think more so than he was on The Martian. So that makes me very excited for the upcoming film, obviously. And again, it can only service to better the film, better capture the spirit of the narrative when you have to condense or translate such a dense story into a visual medium of 2.5 hours. So why wouldn't you want his help? A professional who created this universe and these characters. It seems like a no-brainer to let him do that. And we will give you our money. Studios, get your ego out of the way. This isn't about you. There's a reason why these stories are so popular. And he's a very popular writer, so this makes perfect sense. Of course, he would want to protect the integrity of his story, his characters, and the narrative. And I think he even said that he doesn't even have to continue on in such a huge degree after one film. But to start out, he definitely wants to be a huge part of steering the narrative. Obviously, his first priority is writing books, so that's his number one passion. When talking about his schedule, he said that I've structured my life such that if a screenplay came my way, I'd be able to do it. And in practical terms, Sanderson believes he could carve out a few months to pen the first Mistborn movie script himself without derailing his book deadlines. And he said, quote, I think I could do the first one. It would take me some months, but I could do it. What he can't do is spend years writing script after script for sequels while also trying to finish his novels. So he acknowledged that if Mistborn were greenlit as a film trilogy, he likely wouldn't have the bandwidth to personally script the second and third movies. His primary passion is still writing books, and he intends to keep it that way. Hopefully he would still carve out at least some time for consulting. Maybe that would be less of a time constraint for him if it was dialed back to that degree as a consultation and producer role. But yeah, starting out, you gotta use Brandon Sanderson. These are his stipulations. These are his requirements. They are perfectly acceptable and doable. Give the man what he wants and we'll all be fed. It'll be great. I think with any dense adaptation, it would have to be digestible for and accessible to the broader audience. But I think that's also a neat way to draw new fans to the books, to dive into more. They want to learn more about the universe, then the books are right there and you can get into all those details. I think just for certain universes and certain stories, the potential on film shouldn't be dismissed. It might just make more sense financially to do it on film. I think there's a great potential for profit, way more so than you would have on streaming, on television. And even in television, it seems fantasy shows are being reduced to 6 episodes a lot of the times now. And even then, it's like 3 years between seasons. They're definitely struggling there. And I think just the resources and potential for revenue on film releases would probably fit better for a huge, expansive, wonderful adventure fantasy story like this. And I think people are ready for it, to be honest. It's been so long since we've had such a huge film franchise to get excited about. And this is what the author envisioned. I have confidence that this is how he sees it. And I have confidence in his ability to adapt it in a way that will please book fans and still be accessible to new fans. And hopefully introduce new fans to read the books, which is what every book purist would love to.